Welcome to Max Easy Lessons once more, and this time around we're looking at irony. Now, irony appears just about every aspect of English A and English B. If, as is suggested, you're doing the multiple choice only for the exams, understand that you will be required at some point or another to see some ironic situation on that English B paper. But for now, let's look at irony. Max Easy Lessons, thank you so much for joining us. Now, as a literary device, irony gives that contrast between expectations for a situation and what is really happening. Now, this difference can be surface meaning or something that is said, and then the hidden meaning is there. It can also be a difference between what might be expected to happen and what normally happens. Now, irony is divided into three main parts. There is dramatic irony, there is verbal irony, and there is situational irony. Now, verbal irony is the first one. Verbal irony occurs when the speaker says something in sharp contrast to the actual meaning that he or she wants to present. Now, the statement often seems very, very clear and direct, and yet it suggests that the opposite of this statement is true, or the opposite is what the speaker really wants to bring across to you as the reader. Unlike dramatic and situational irony, verbal irony is always intentional. Whatever the speaker is saying is what the speaker wants to say. It's always intentional on the part of the speaker. Verbal irony can also have ironic similes, which are referred to in many cases as comparisons in which two things are not alike at all. For example, a person tells you, you are as soft as sandpaper. If you're feeling like sandpaper, your texture, then it can't be soft. Or a person may tell you that you are warm as ice. Notice the contrast there. Warm is comforting, ice is cold. These similes mean then that the thing in question, whatever you're talking about, is actually not soft and it is not warm at all. It's the complete opposite to what is being said. Dramatic irony, on the other hand, occurs when the audience has more, or the reader has more information than one or more characters in the piece that you are reading. Now, this originally came from the Greek tragedy, and it's important to know about the Greek tragedy as well. The dramatic irony came from Greek tragedy and often leads to tragic outcomes. If you have ever read Othello, the audience, the readers, understand that Othello's best friend, Iago, is a villain. He's dangerous, he's deadly, and he is attempting to bring Othello down. The audience knows this, but Othello does not know this. And so that then would have been the dramatic irony, where you as a reader know that this is going to happen, but the characters do not know. If we're thinking about Tijan and his brothers, the characters know that this is the devil that Grosjean and Mijan encounters, but Mijan and Grosjean, they do not know that this is the devil in disguise as a planter. Now, situational irony is the other one, and this consists of a situation in which the outcome is very different from what is expected. In this case, there are contradictions and contrasts that are presented in cases where we're talking about the situational irony. I'm sure we're all familiar with the wonderful Wizard of Oz. The people who live in Emerald City, they take it for granted. They assume that Oz is great and all powerful. And yet that character, the man behind the curtain, comes out in the end as an old man who has no particular powers. And that's the situational irony. Now, there are other types of irony that we will contend with. There is cosmic irony. There is historical irony. There is Socratic irony as well. Now, cosmic irony is also known as the irony of fate. And this one is presented in stories that whole gods and that kind of myth. No, these gods have different agendas than humans. These gods are often referred to as the fates, and they may play with the lives of the humans they encounter because to them it is amusing. The irony of cosmic irony is in the contrast between what humans expect to happen and what really happens to them. Now, you probably want to go back to Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. You probably want to draw for, and that's the only one that comes to mind right now, but those Greek tragedies, those Greek films and novels best speak to cosmic irony. Now, this is important, and it has been important throughout Greek legends, and it is also present in modern day stories as well. There are so many there, but at this point, I'm going to ask you to help me in the comment section below to give me some examples of the cosmic irony. There is also historical irony. Historical irony relates to the real events that happened back then when things, and they were seen in retrospect. Sorry. No, the historical irony had vastly different outcomes than were predicted at the time. So we want to think about things that have happened in the past. The result of the discovery, what happens as a result, is completely different from what they predicted at that point. And then there is Socratic irony. The philosopher of Socrates would pretend to be ignorant about the topic under debate, and this will bring out the nonsensical argument that the opposing side has. Now, we see Socratic irony, yes, but sometimes we do not realize that this is also one of the dramatic ironies that we often use, where someone pretends to have less information than the person really does, just to see what somebody else is thinking, the nonsensical arguments that the person is going to put forward. Now, what's the difference between irony and sarcasm? And many of us will, often confuse irony and sarcasm. There are many similarities between verbal irony and sarcasm, and both of these are not equivalent. However, some people may say that they are different. For example, when we look at some encyclopedias, we realize that sarcasm is non-literary irony. And of course, some people will dispute this and say that someone employing verbal irony says the opposite of what that person means, and therefore sarcasm becomes a direct speech that is aggressive humor. No, it's a little bit tricky defining irony and sarcasm, yes, but they are different. Common examples of irony. Verbal irony says, what a pleasant day it is when rain is falling. It's raining cats and dogs outside. And somebody will say to you, oh, what a pleasant day we're having. That is verbal irony. Situational irony is when you believe that something is happening now that will end everything else. So for example, some persons would have said World War I would put an end to all the wars that each country had been having individually. And as a collective World War I, then it would have put an end to all wars. Situational irony? Yes. Here is one example I found on the internet. In 1925, when the New York Times declared that the crossword puzzle was a craze that was dying out fast. No, it wasn't. It's still happening. And dramatic irony is where, in this case, you are being filmed and you don't know that you are being filmed. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. Now, thank you so much for stopping by. It was a pleasure once more having you here, and I do hope this helped you. Best wishes in all your exams coming up soon, even though we're going through this period and this moment of panic. Let us all still remain focused. Try to remember what we need to remember. Try to understand what we need to understand and get through. Keep your plans, keep your goals, and don't ever forget them. Thank you so much for watching.